I just had a very brief conversation, and I wanted to say that one thing that I forgot to put into my PowerPoint is Streetwise is here, and at the end of December, they called up John Kaiser and wanted to do a story on the top 5 drill holes in 2021, and we slid in there at number 5, and the way John Kaiser wrote it was, and Jennifer Boyle just slid in there at the 11th hour with the hair of a chinny chin chin, and I called up John and I said, look, I don't care how I got there, but I'll take it. So I'm going to be changing my PowerPoint. I totally forgot about that. So, all right, Satori Resources. We have the past producing Tartan Lake gold mine in Flin Flon, Manitoba. Flin Flon, according to Wikipedia, is the most prolific mining jurisdiction in the world. That's right on Wikipedia's page. So location, we have it. It is the home of 30 base metal mines and 8 gold mines. Our project is to date gold only. However, because it is underexplored, we are also looking to see if we can find some copper, zinc, VMS, other base metals as we explore along. There is an existing resource on the project right now. It's about 270,000 ounces, and I'll explain a little bit more as I get into the program as to how I think we can expand that resource fairly quickly. This mine operated between 1986 and 1989, and the mine did not close because it ran out of ore. It closed. When I say the business of mining is there's the above ground matters and below ground matters. The mine shut because the price of gold fell below $400. The U.S. dollar was weak, and there was litigation and arbitration between the 2 joint venture partners at the top. And equipment failure and ill-fitted equipment for the size of the ore body, and I'll get into a little bit more of that. So fast forward, in 2021, we really have not done a lot with this project over the last 8 to 10 years. And then when the price of gold changed during COVID, I put together a new team. We raised the capital and did proper desktop studies and conducted our very first drill program in 2021 after years of really just not a lot going on at the project. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there. So the location, we are in Flin Flon, Manitoba. We're right 12 kilometers outside of Flin Flon. And Flin Flon is a big Hud Bay district, so there's lots of local talent. It's a 12-kilometer drive from the town of Flin Flon right up to the mine site, so excellent infrastructure. We have Manitoba Hydro grid power right to the site as well, and so the location is excellent. You can also see that we are in an area with several other discoveries, so these are either mines and or deposits in the area, and our project is situated very well within large regional folds, and I'll get into that when I get to that slide. So the takeaway from this slide is Wes Hansen. Wes Hansen, he was a Kinross guy, geologist. He worked underground at the Tartan Lake mine when it operated between 86 and 89. So when he went in as the CEO of Noront, I don't know, probably 2008 or 9, I called him up and I told him that we had acquired this property and could I have 12 minutes of his time. Wes is 9 feet tall and very tall. He has a booming voice, has a very large presence, and I walked into his office and he slams his hand down on the table and he said, "You'll make money with that mine, Jennifer. You just have to change your mining methods." So I said, "Did I say 12 minutes? We've been 3. That's all I need to know." I went running out of the office, and that's sort of where we started promoting with confidence of people that have worked at the mine historically. Jeff Stipper, JDS Mining, also was the engineer on site when the mine operated. He's very much involved with our company. Dale Ginn worked at the site as well. So I have really good resources to go back and tap to get some of the historical information and really their take on what happened and why, how did we get to where we are right now. So they're excellent resources. We did an IP survey this winter. It didn't really work out so well because there was so much snow this year in Manitoba that there were two zones that really didn't get looked at. And I'll come back to these, but it's this zone here and this zone here. In our other presentation, this is what our geologist calls just a very large conductor. I'll come back to that. I just threw this slide on. I really didn't really want to talk geology on this slide. It's really more about the people, the shares out, and the cash that we have in the bank. And let me tell you, that's sucking fast because we just ended a drill program. So Doug Flagg is also on our board. He's a former BMO, institutional sales. His Rolodex is fantastic. So when we went to put the team back together in 2020, we were very strategic about finding the right people, coming with the right talents. And I'm still continuing to, after this drill program, I'm still continuing to build the board, build the team, and we'll see how all that goes, so stay tuned. This slide is typically the last slide in any presentation. It's the takeaways, but I'm going to start with it because I think that this is more of a what's the big picture story rather than very specifics about drill holes. The mine was put into production very quickly after some exploration success. So there's virtually no work done outside of the mine site area on an over 2,000 hectare property in a great jurisdiction. So we see a lot of blue sky with this project. And as I had said earlier, the other takeaway is the price of gold fell below $400, which is one of the reasons why the mine shut. I think the other key point about this project is it was in the hands of other operators. However, I'll say Claude Resources, for example, they had other assets that took priority for funding and attention, and Tartan Lake really never did get that. Claude put about 11 holes into it. And then I picked it up in 2008 when Claude was disposing of non-core assets during, it was August, during the financial crisis. So they had CB and Madsen to focus on. And so I do get a lot of questions about, gee, if you have a gold mine, Jennifer, how come you're not in production? How come, it's overlooked? Or how come? And the reason is because it did not get a lot of attention being the B project in any company that it was with, including Satori's predecessor company, St. Eugene. We had another property in that company, and Claude ended up buying us for that other property. And so we kept the Tartan Lake mine. So it's really been because of above ground matters and not below ground matters that we fast forward to better gold prices, better financing in 2022 that gets us where we are right now. So we have been applying more modern day geophysical and geological tools to the project. And one thing that we were speaking of last night, we really did take the last part of 2020 to carry out very thorough desktop studies and geophysics with one of Wes's guys that was working in the Ring of Fire. And we actually came up with a brand new interpretation of the project, the rock, and really took our time. I did pay for it in the market, I think, because we're fairly quiet. There wasn't really a lot of news, and so I would always get a lot of comments about where are you at? What are you doing? What's going on? How come you're not drilling? But I have to say that it paid off because there's 500 drill holes in this property. We drilled 12 in 2021, and we hit on 11 of them, and some of the highest grades the property has ever seen. These are the takeaway points that, like I say, is typically at the last slide, but I just want you to keep these points in mind as I continue to go through the project in more detail. So we have the luxury of working on a dual track strategy. Because there is significant underground development already in place, the mine does need to be dewatered. However, there's some fairly good mining stopes, and I've gone through this with Jeff Stibbard with JDS, who was part of all of that between 86 and 89. He's the one looking at this right now. But we can also test the blue sky on areas outside of the main deposit area. So the main deposit area is where they were mining, and virtually nothing has been done on other parts of the property. However, there has been some good reconnaissance programs and small drilling program, not by us, but in the 80s, and I'll go over that. But for the most part, this is a project that was rushed to production, and so now we have the benefit of all of that. So we are able to carry out exploration, but at the same time evaluate permitting requirements and whatnot in the event that we can expedite production with this property. So here we are. You can see there is Manitoba Hydro. I took that picture about 4 weeks ago when I was up there. So really good road access. This is the infrastructure here. There's a tailings pond, and this is the whole mine site area. There is a mill on site right now. It will need to have a lot of money thrown at it. I did have an evaluation done on how it was more or less shut down. It came back very positive. However, that was 1989, and there could be, Jeff Stibbard is looking into better equipment and a better design for it. Notwithstanding that, there's a 2,100 meter ramp going to 300 meters below surface. That is all in place. And yeah, and that's about it for this one. So as I said before, there is a 43101 resource on the property. And I do get a lot of questions about the metallurgy. And there was a study done in 2017, which really came back with favorable results, 94.6 and 85.8%. And so there's still a lot of work to do with that, but I do get questions on it, so I did throw it into this slide. So this is a model of the underground. You can see here's the decline here, six levels of decline through the stopes. This is the main zone. So most of the resource is here. This is the south zone right beside it. The drilling that we did in 2021 was to test the down plunge extension of the main zone, but also the south zone. So you can see here, this is the main zone. Here's the south zone. South zone holes were fairly shallow. Main zone drilling was a lot deeper. This is what we drilled in 2021. This you can see the high grade here. And right now, we just completed drilling the down plunge extension of the south zone, and we expect assays back from that in a month or less. So again, the project really does comprise the main zone and the south zone. We are right now drilling to extend both of those zones. And at the end of 2021, we had a little bit of a surprise. We were drilling at main zone, and we hit a new zone, which does not look like anything that's ever been drilled on the property before. So we're like, oh, BMS, copper zinc. It wasn't, but it was, jury is still out on it, whether or not we call it an interpreted new zone within the vicinity of the main zone, and that returned 47 grams over 5.8 meters, including 23.76 grams over 12 meters. So that is one of the highest grade intervals ever drilled at the project, and a lot of that is owed primarily to the desktop studies that we did at the end of 2020 in order to be able to pick these targets. Another thing that we did just in March of this year, we not only stepped out a little bit, but quite a lot. We went to a target that was sort of identified by Doug Flagg, who is a geologist as well and one of our board members. And we could not find the historic data for this area, although there was quite a large stripped shear zone. And we did do some ground reconnaissance on it twice, went back and drilled it, and we put 7 holes in it just recently. The geologists seem to indicate that we did drill where we thought we were drilling, which means we're quite excited to get the results back from that. However, they did take the drill after drilling 7 holes in 1 kilometer away. They did go back to the south zone and drilled there. I'll talk about that a little bit more when I get to the slide. However, the point is, if any of the holes come back from the McFadden area, which is well outside of the mine site area, that run similar to the mine site, it will evidence that there is widespread mineralization on the property. So this slide really just talks about a lot of the historic grades that have come out of this project. But in 2021, you can see that at the main zone, we drilled the 2nd highest grade coming out of the project. And at South Zone, before we drilled South Zone is like the smaller sister. And Wes said to me, be prepared, Jennifer, that the South Zone has typically never returned grades even close to the main zone. So just be prepared for that, prepare the investors, know that going into it. Well, it actually was one of the highest grade holes ever hit. So again, that is owed to the work that we did ahead of time in target selection. So this is the prior slide was historic holes. This slide here is only from main zone and south zone. So you can see some of the grades that we're getting back, quite high grade, good intervals, and we did get a good response in the market from that. So this is the main zone right here. You can see that on this heat map, you can see that this is the historic drilling. What we did in 2021 is we extended the main zone down plunge by 250 meters, call it 200. So there is absolutely no drilling in these spots here, and that's where when I get asked, how can you increase the resource? This is where we'll go to increase resource, because we know that it's all here. We now know that it's also way below here, and so we've got a lot of infill to do between those 2 areas. This is the interpreted new hanging wall zone. You can very clearly see that this is the standard core that we see at the main zone and the south zone. You can see that this is the new hanging wall zone, the one that came back with the screening grades. And visually, it's very different, and that's what we are trying to work out for 2022. This is the south zone, the adjoining south zone. In 2022, we are now drilling the down plunge of the south zone. We've got 3 holes pending assay results. If we get any joy out of these, then I think that it will be a game changer for the company. So this is our project right here. You can see that that we've got showings along this trend. This is Hud Bay outside where right here, Hud Bay is right here. But there's the mine. There's McFadden. There's where we drilled. You can see the distance there. So if we get some results back from this, that's the widespread mineralization. And you can just see that we've got lots of targets to follow up on. And that's it. Yep. We talk. Yeah. Yeah. It's still very early for that, but like I say, those discussions are ongoing, and that's particularly why JDS is involved as well, takes part in all those conversations.
Any other questions? So you showed us the road. Is that a main road, or is that a road that was built for the mine? And it looks like it's very well maintained in the snow. There must be some service comes through and snow out. That you drive in the snow plow.
Yeah, pretty much. It's yeah, the road is in fairly good conditions, so they'll go in with skidoos if the trucks can't make it in. It's a very bumpy road. We will have to put some money into grading it, but for the most part, it gets all the drillers in and out, gets everybody in and out to the mine site. And there's a dry at the mine site, like there's all the historic buildings there and whatnot. So. We do hold ourselves out as being 12 months a year. However, right now, we pulled out. Right now, we'll go back in June, just because it's the spring mushy. And that's actually why we drilled McFadden. It would have been great to go back and drill main zone, but we needed to get out to McFadden on the skidoos. So.
It's always difficult. I always get confused when I see those cross sections. You called out that area where you're going to start from. Those are deep holes, right? Or are we looking at a first side?
So that was the geophysics slide from the IP survey. Sorry, and so there was 2 white lines that were missing out of that because the snow was so deep, they just got tired of digging 6 feet down. So they left out those 2 lines. Unfortunately, one was McFadden and the other one was South Zone. But what I did take off for this presentation, and I'll tell you guys, our geologist put MOAC up in the top right-hand corner of that geophysics slide, mother of all conductors. I took it off. So nobody's been up there yet. So that's all blue sky for us.
So I guess what I'm getting to is, like I asked, what is the cost of
So last year was fairly cheap. We were, I even put it in a news release. I'll go back and look at it. It was $300. I'm going to say a meter maybe. I'll come back to you with that. It was really reasonable. We just conducted a drill program, really unreasonable. And we use the same drilling company, and yeah.
Okay. Are there any questions for? Okay, well, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.